cause their light to shine. The sun darkened in his going forth, and the moonlight shall not shine. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause to cease the arrogancy of the proud, and lay low the haughtiness of the terrible.
Hello, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. So we're starting a little late today. Some technical problems. We're continuing in the book of Isaiah, chapter 13. A very militaristic chapter. Speaking of the doom of Babylon, before they've really risen, even, and the Neo-Babylonian Empire is still yet not formed. I mean, the Assyrians haven't even conquered Israel. They haven't conquered Judah. Well, the prophet already sees the end of Babylon, as he already saw the end of Assyria. So let's look at verse 12. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Ophir is a geographical location, unknown exactly, at least last I looked. Probably someplace in Africa. But he just said how he was going to, we said a lot of symbology similar to, not symbology, but a lot of language similar to what we see in the book of Revelation in terms of the stars of heaven and the constellations that are not giving their light. That's part of like the sixth seal. Also Jesus spoke of it in the Sermon on the Mount. Well, not the Sermon on the Mount. He spoke on the Olivet Discourse. It is a message from a mountain, but a different message entirely. In Mark 13, Matthew 24, and Luke 21. Similarly, but it talks about the stars of heaven not giving their light. It's one of the common signs of the very last is is the lights going out. What's interesting is there are incidences of the lights going darker ahead of that, meaning the sun and the moon are darkened early on in the tribulation, but later they are really darkened. But that shows you how deceiving that can be, because even someone who has a little knowledge could easily be manipulated around that fact of that. Well, the first time, maybe this is it. This is the Lord coming. This is Jesus. See how the sun and the moon were darkened? That's just like the prophecy, even if it's not. And he's going to punish the world for their evil. So in the midst of all this, I will make a man more precious than fine gold. Precious in the sense of rarity, and it's obvious the meaning, because as in the case of Israel being taken captive by the Assyrians, it was very clear they would be left few in number, and so also for the Babylonians, it's what he's saying is, I'm going to make men very rare indeed. And often remember, in ancient battles, it was possible for one side to completely annihilate the other from time to time. Or casualties were much heavier than in modern times. War casualties. It's very, a winning and losing army might have lost half their numbers. I mean, depending on the situation. So the men will become scarce. We also talked about the 7 women taking hold of one man. There was talking about a male in particular. How much am I about to use 2 different words for man right here? A man. That's just a guess, because a lot of times when they duplicate their sayings in the prophecies, they like to do a different man. The first man is Enosh. And the second one is Adam. That's right. So I will make Enosh more precious than fine gold, even a man, Adam, than the golden wedge of Ophir. That's example, the 2 different words. Enosh usually means, I believe, is it Enosh? Is it really Enosh? Here, I'll show you the difference. Wrong thing. This one. There we go. Wrong chapter. I need Isaiah. I'm in the wrong one again. What happened? I need that. Just a second. It's that one I need. There we go. I will make a man. There we have the word man. Make a man, right? This one here. And that one there. First one. Strong's Hebrew 582. Enosh. Enosh. Man, mankind. Interesting. From Anash, properly a mortal, and thus different from the more dignified Adam. Hence, man in general, singly or collectively. So the word Enosh refers to man's more base nature. I forgot what is the Enosh? What was my other word for man? There's Adam, right? Enosh. I'm like, I want to go Enosh, Canaan, because that's the Adam, Seth, Enoch, Canaan is the order of the people in Genesis. And I keep hearing, and so I say Adam, Enosh, and I just want to follow with Canaan. But Ish, that's it. It's Ish. I'm gonna have to look it up. Ish and Isha, that refers to the man in the higher sense of his being. Not exactly like the word gentleman, but, more towards man as in his higher nature. This is Anash. I mean, Enoch is a more low reference to man, the mortal, in his mortality. So that makes a lot of sense here. I will make these mortals more rare than fine gold. Even Adam, than the fine, Adam, not the man himself, but the species. And that's this one. Oh, I'm sorry, I switched over too soon. I mean, not that it's that exciting. Adam, a man, mankind. They both can refer to mankind, but one refers to one is a little more dignified. All right. I'm sorry here. Okay. All right. Therefore will I shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, in the wrath of the Lord of hosts. What? And in the day of his fierce anger. I'm sorry, it moved without me seeing it. And it shall be as the chased roe, and as the sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one to his own land. Every one that is found shall be thrust through, and every one that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Sorry, I got an itch here. Oh, all right, we'll get that later. Okay, well, we'll go on to the gritty details. God says, the shaking of the heavens, yet not once more I will shake the earth not only, but the heavens also, Paul says. And this signifies the shaking of all these things is to remove those things which may not be, to remove those things that may be shaken, that which may not be shaken may remain. So God will shake the heavens and the earth. That is a prophecy over and over again written of. Hold on a second. Let's all right, I gotta stop. Just because it itches. All right, I think that's good enough. My shin. All right, let's look at some of these passages. Let's look up some of them. All right. Shake the heavens. Let's just look at the shake. Wait, shake. I'm just curious. Let's just use the word shake. Only 81. Well, how many occur in the new? Oh, all the names. Yeah, Hebrews 12, it should be familiar. And this word yet once more signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken as of things that are made, and those things which cannot be shaken may remain. It's like that, and the idea is that the works of God would remain, but the works of men would collapse. And the things which are made. Verse 12. Yeah. Whose voice then shook the heavens. I'm sorry, Hebrews 12:26. Whose voice then shook the heavens. I'm sorry, I keep reading wrong. Whose voice then shook the earth. But now he hath promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. There's a long... Because, and what it signifies, what is the shaking of heaven? The shaking of heaven means the stirring up of things in heaven. I got to tell you, all in heaven is not as it is in, as it will be, right? I mean, in the middle of Revelation 12, we have war in heaven. Some people think that's past. I don't really think so. Mostly because what is said later. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and they prevailed not, and they were cast out of heaven. And what it says there, it says, Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Well, it says in verse 12, Rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth he hath but a short time. I can't see that occurring any time in the past. The idea that Satan has specially come down since the time of Christ, and specially made this world harder for everyone since then, it just makes no sense. It just doesn't. So I have trouble cramming this into an amillennial. I just have trouble with that. Any kind of sense out of that. The devil is coming down in a special way. In a way that's not common. In a way that's not normal. In a way that's not been since the foundation of the world. I'll tell you that. And God, after he does shake up, when he, and this signifies, it is not his throwing out that is the shaking of heaven. That's not the shaking of heaven. But it signifies that heaven is being shaken. What I'm saying is that in and of itself is not the result of the shaking of heaven. But Satan being cast out represents a shakeup in heaven of sorts, and certainly a part of the great shakeup which is to come. Satan being shaken in heaven is part of, when he says he's going to shake heaven, it's not just like one day, one moment. I mean, it could be over the course of time. As far as like the tribulation whole period could be the shaking of heaven in some, could be looked at in that sense because of the shakeup, because of the change of things. Rejoice, ye heavens, because those things which are in heaven that are offensive, or which give offense, I should say, are removed. Satan and his angels cast out. In the world as it is, the way it is set up, the world order, even down to the way heaven operates, is going to be shaken up. And the earth will be moved. In the wrath of the Lord of hosts, in the day of his fierce anger, it shall be as the chased roe, some kind of deer or gazelle, as a sheep that no one takes up, some animal, people chasing a sheep that no one gets, no one collects that sheep. And take up means to collect. And you herd the sheep together. I got a stray sheep that no one's going after. You ever chase, because when you spook an animal, you see they run off, the way they spook, that's how the people are going to be. They shall every man turn to his own people and flee everyone to his own land. And I actually, the sheep that no man taketh up, actually, as a sheep that none collects. I realize what this means. I've never understood this verse, and I think I understand it now. What it means, quite simply, is a sheep that no one taketh up. And I always do this through context. So here's the thing. Understanding is 99% context. Maybe that percentage is off, but I'm telling you, it's heavy context. Don't worry too much about translation. Because I've gone through translation like roe, I looked into it. I'm like, okay, it's some sort of quadrupedal prey animal, like a gazelle or something. Who knows exactly? It's not critical. A sheep that no man taketh up. There's a missing part. But you look at the second clause, they shall turn every man to his own people, flee everyone to his own land. They're all going to run home to mama. I mean, that's the passage. That's what it means. Everyone's going to run home to mama, right? Everyone's going to run away and go home. So go home, quote unquote. Like a chased gazelle. As a sheep that no one takes up. Like, what's that? I always had trouble envisioning this. It's just because that sounds like a lost sheep. But it's not a lost sheep. It's a sheep that's herding itself. Because, very simply, sheep don't have to be herded entirely. If I have, and tell me if I'm wrong, I don't have a lot of experience with sheep, but I'm pretty sure this is how it works. It works with people and animals and all kinds of situations, not just sheep. But I'm guessing sheep it's especially true. If I take a bunch of sheep, like 100, and I put them all in one place in a big herd, and I take one sheep and I put him, and he can see those sheep, and I put him away from them. I separate him from them. What do you think is going to happen? That sheep's going to run right back to the herd. Of course, they're going to run right to the herd because that's what sheep do. They herd. No man must herd them. All right? And meaning, without any further prompting, they're going to run away home. Like a sheep running back to the herd, like a gazelle chased into the wilderness. When you chase the wild animal into the wilderness, you don't know where it goes, but it goes somewhere, right? It goes back to the nature, right? You ever spooked a deer and they just ghost off into the woods? That's it. That's the whole thing. And that's what these people are going to do. They're all going to turn to their own people. See, the sheep is turning to its own people. See, that's why that analogy is, that's what that clause probably means. And that's just using context to delve into the meaning of what the sheep that no man taketh up, I believe, is collect. Because remember, when sheep are truly lost, the shepherd has to go collect them. You know, they have to go pick them up, go get them. There's pictures of this. Carrying the lost sheep, you know. Oh, that must be a lost lamb, because good luck carrying the lost sheep. You ever carried a sheep? They're pretty big. They're bulky and heavy. They can weigh they can be heavy. 80, 90, 100 pounds. Depending on the breed. Yeah, they can be picked up, but, yeah. When I think of a picture of a shepherd holding a lost sheep, it's always a very little lamb. As a sheep that none taketh up, everyone that is found shall be thrust. So again, fleeing people who are found in their flight are thrust through. Everyone that is joined them shall be followed. All their allies, the people who are allied to them, who are joined to them with allegiance, falling by the sword, thrust through. We're saying there's no escape. They can run, but they can't hide. You know. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. And that means, ravished means raped. That's how I say in the song, their wives shall be raped. I was saying, here you go. You know, because like people always it's like, did you know this is in the Bible? They always try to play gotcha games. It's like, I know stuff in the Bible, just the book of Isaiah, we're going to get to. You know, like whenever someone says to you, all right, this is going to be, I'm going to use a slight bit of profanity here, okay? Sorry. I'm not going to say doo-doo or poo-poo, because I just did, and it sounds silly. Well, you know, whatever, we'll see. You know, but someone once said to me, hey, you know, the Bible condones slavery. You know? And I won't use the profane one. My response says, well, the Bible also condones eating crap. It also says you should eat crap. It says eat poop and drink pee. You know. And I know you're saying to me, Paul, but there's got to be some context there. Of course, there's got to be some context there. Try explaining that to people who don't understand the Bible. And I was like, the Bible condones slavery. Well, the Bible condones poop eating, and it condemns it, and it does both. You know what I mean? The Bible, they say the Bible condones slavery. It also condemns slavery. So we have to think about it. You know what I mean? You can't just say, oh, it condones slavery, duh. It's like, well, you know, your brain condones stupidity. So, you know, a lot of things get condoned that shouldn't be, don't they? And you shouldn't use stupidity in an argument. It's always, as soon as you call someone stupid, you maybe you win a rhetorical victory sometimes, but you've pretty much lost the argument. It's like, well, what it means is you have no ability to argue. You know, it's like you may feel like you won and like you didn't lose, but it's like no one's listening to you anymore once you know. Because when someone tells me I'm stupid, I'm like, we're not talking about anything anymore. You're just telling me something that I know is, I was gonna say no is true, or no isn't true, whatever. It's something I know is you're just. That's not an argument. It's like I'm stupid. Well, I've thought the same thing, and sometimes that's true, you know, but that has nothing to do with why you're wrong. Like I can be stupid and you can be wrong at the same time. Isn't it funny when a stupid person shows you how wrong you are? Yeah. Sometimes I like to just own that, you know, just take up the banner of I'm just stupid, you know, like that For Dummies series, you know. They have a whole series of books like, you know, Rocket Science for Dummies, you know, or you know, The Idiot's Guide, the Idiot's Guide and for Dummies. And it's a successful book series because some people like to be like, I'm a dummy and blah, blah, blah. And the funny thing is, the For Dummies, I've looked at those books. They're, I don't know. I don't think that when I thumb through those For Dummies books, I think that the people who call themselves dummies are not very dumb. What it is they just want the full explanation, is what I think is really going on. It's like, meaning I need to have all the information. And that's sometimes how I feel. So I understand that sort of thing. But sometimes I want the short and skinny, not the big, fat, thick book explaining how to do something. Okay. So the Bible says, you know, does the Bible condone the dashing of children to pieces? Does it condone rape and looting? The houses are going to be looted and their wives raped. The thing is, and I've said to people, it's like people get upset about it. I'm like, oh, it happened. He's not saying necessarily like I'm going to rape their wives or children or whatever. You know, I'm going to kill their children. It's just what's going to happen. I mean, God has pronounced it, and on some level, you know, a lot of people they want to take God off of the hook and say, well, men are doing this, you know. As I recall, God put his, you know, I have commanded my sanctified ones. I have commanded my sanctified ones. I have called my mighty ones for my anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. This army is God's sanctified army. It's not just any old rabble. These are sanctified. They're the ones that are coming through killing and raping. The thing that gets me is because people always want to take God off the hook, like say, like, well, there's evil in the world, but it has nothing to do with God. He didn't want any evil in the world. Certainly, there's no wickedness in God. But as far as it, you know, who planted the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? That tree, when you ate it, it caused you to die. You know? So, it was, you know, the thing, they say death entered in the world through Adam's sin. But the thing that killed him was something that God planted in the garden. Not something that he brought from outside. You know? And the disobedience he did was something that was in him in the garden, not after he'd fallen. You know what I mean? Meaning that there's something about, like, you can talk about the fall and sin entering in and death and all that, but death was already in the world in the tree. I know it says otherwise. Death entered the world by one. But also, you know, there it is. I mean, it was still there only as potential, but the point is God brought about the potential. Same thing with this. Yeah, God doesn't tell someone to go rape, per se, But there's always the potential. He created that potential. All the evil that happened in the world and that has happened in the world is of necessity. Of necessity, part of God's plan. And if it's not really a better situation. Because if it's not, then God is just letting things happen that are beyond his control that he would not like to do. Not beyond his control, but he refuses to control them. He refuses to bring them under control. But that contradicts the idea that God is in control. It contradicts the idea also that all things work together for good for those that love God. Because for them to work together for good, they have to be in some measure predictable and understandable. In some measure. I mean, if they're truly a black box to God, I mean, he has no idea what's going on inside. And he's totally ignorant of what's about to happen. You can't make God ignorant and then still make him all-knowing. Because some people would try to make God ignorant in regards to the human will. So he doesn't know what we're going to do. I don't know why they go about doing that. Because you have to diminish God somewhat. I mean, you do. He has to be a somewhat less God. And that's a bit of a thing. Because one of the... Was it Pascal or... I forgot. Or... it wasn't Pascal. It was... There's a particular... But let me just put it this way. And I'm sorry, my philosopher... I was never really into philosophy, the philosophy of other men, or reading it. But one of the things about the existence of God that the philosophers have said, or one came up with an idea of God is that than which there can be no greater. That than which there can be no greater. Meaning, if you had, if you could conceive of a being of which there can be no greater, or if you can conceive of a being that is a little greater, and then has the quality of immortal, I forgot what the whole argument goes, but the idea is, if I could conceive of a being greater than what I'm conceiving of as God, then that being would be God. You know what I mean? If I can conceive a greater God. Greater, though, it's like, are you measuring it properly, though? Because for some people, a God that gives us free will is greater. He's more, he's giving up things. He's sort of sacrificing even his own all-knowing ability so that we could have free will. We have free will. The problem is, we all want to be who we are. I mean, I have free will, but it's not really free because I'm only free to be Paul Strangini. I can't really be anyone else. I can only be, quote unquote, someone else to the degree within my own personality I have elasticity. Meaning I can be different from my own self according to the elasticity that is inherent within my own personality. My personality can stretch. I can change. I have changed over time, but as people who have known me for a long time will say, I haven't changed a whole lot. I'm still pretty much the same person. Not a lot has changed. Certainly, interiorly, I'm in the same stream of consciousness. I remember moments from 30, 40 years ago. Same mind, same person. But but the idea that I could just decide somehow to do things differently than I do them. You understand? That is the struggle of my life. To do things differently than I do them. To choose to do things that I don't want to. You know what I mean? Like, I do things that I don't want to do. Where does free will come in? Free will only, the concept of free will I find to be an insult to me. Because it says I have something that I know I don't. There are so many things I would like to do. So many changes I would like to make to my life and to my personality, myself, that I would willingly make at the snap of a finger if I could only snap my finger and make it happen. And since you cannot snap your finger and make it happen, and that you are in some respects bound to what you are, and you find it difficult to change, and as much as that is true, you have no free will. None. God is not a puppeteer over me. I do everything according to my will, which is not free. It's bound to My will is bound in the shape of Paul Strangini. It's bound in that shape. My will is my will. Like Jesus said when he spoke to the Father, not as I will, but as thou willst. He had a will. It's not like he could have some other will. I make my will into thy will. No, he said, not as I will, but as you will. May I accept something other than what I want. Other than what I am. So, well, so the point is, I bring up predestination in that context because this is the typical thing that people hate about predestination. Is like children being dashed to pieces, But it's silly. Because the same people, the funny thing is, here's the thing that gets me. People who love the Bible, and won't blanket stuff like this, so they'll find some excuse, right? I mean, I embrace it. I do. But I just find it funny that people who don't believe the Bible would be outraged by children being dashed to pieces. When it's like, usually, it's no different than abortion. It's just a little later. Ripping kids up and throwing them in garbage bags. I mean, who cares? We've got millions of aborted babies and parts and stuff floating around in our medical waste. Of course, that which they haven't sold for research or whatever, and those body parts can be valuable. Tissue, they use it to research all kinds of miracle cures and women's beauty products, So it's critical research. I'm being somewhat sarcastic, obviously. Their children should be dashed to pieces before their eyes. I'm obviously referring to, children that people actually want. So actually it's more meaningful than a bunch of unwanted babies being torn up in the womb and tossed into the trash or into the recycling bin, actually, more truthfully. So, I always just think people's horrors at babies being smashed on rocks is pretty... I'm not buying into it. If you're pro-abortion, I don't buy into your outrage about women getting raped and babies being smashed. If you're into abortion, I don't buy your outrage. You may genuinely be outraged, but I just won't grant it. I just don't grant it. It's like you have no right to be outraged. You have no right to be outraged at anything the Bible says. If you can conscience abortion, if you think it's okay, then you have no right to be outraged. None. Not around me. Not in front of me, not to my face. I mean, you can go be outraged all you like, but I won't accept it as legitimate. There's no legitimate outrage there. But for people who are consistent, who are like, I hate abortion and I hate this, and so I hate the Bible, okay, now I got someone here I have to contend with. Now I got someone with standards. I got someone with like morals and stuff who's gonna ask tough questions instead of being a self-contradiction. Of like, how terrible, the Bible. And it's like, we kill millions every year or whatever. I don't know if we kill millions a year. That's probably a bit much, right? Well, there have been millions since 73. I know that. Millions and millions and tens of millions, I think. I don't know the numbers, okay? It's probably not millions a year, but hundreds of thousands perhaps, huh? I don't know. It's the kind of number I don't like to know. I don't want to know. Besides, the numbers are too big. It always just throws you off. It's just like 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust. It's like when I look at 1,000 people, it looks like a lot. If I saw 1,000 dead people, that would be millions. I don't even know how to contend with those kind of numbers. You know what I mean? Like, what would 1 million dead people laid head to toe and side to side look like? Like, how much room would that take up outside of my house? How much ground space? I mean, I would love to be able to visualize this and be like, wow, like that's a lot of dead people. A real lot. So, okay, so the justification, God does not owe us a living. Everyone, we have built into us a great amount of sympathy for the young. And as men, we also sympathize with the women. We don't like to see women hurt generally, though some people hate women so much they love to see them hurt. It's a thing. Some people love to see children hurt. They're evil. We consider that evil, right? We consider this bad. Even the Bible, when they say it, they know it's being said in the Bible. Like, this is being said not as like a good thing, right? You understand that. It's saying all these horrors are going to upon them, and this is one of them. They're going to watch their children be dashed to pieces. Because children of us, when you conquer a civilization, the basic thing that happens is a lot of times the old are killed or left. Sometimes they're just left because they're not useful. The young men and women are taken into captivity for slaves and concubines, obviously. The young men are useful. And the very young men, like the boys and girls of a young age, even if once they're a certain age, they're useful as slaves and as servants, and they can be taken away and for that purpose. But infants and toddlers are just useless, and they are absolutely just a burden. And so when you have a bunch of women you're taking captive and they have all these cumbersome children about them, the first thing you need to do is separate them from their children and kill off all the children. And this is most effectively done right in front of the mother's faces. It does the most psychological damage. So they would dash them to pieces while they watch. And then thus breaking the mother-child bond and teaching the mother now she's in the hands of new management. Okay? Cruel. Horribly cruel. Horribly wicked. Right? But God has also appointed this. How do we reconcile a world in which we believe God is good, but all this evil has come about? Well, I did a study on this subject. It's a lengthy subject. And that's why, I'm here on this verse and I'm thinking about it. How am I going to, in the time allotted, and we're 40 minutes into the study, how am I going to explain the problem of evil? And I don't really think of it as a problem. Evil is a problem, but it's also a necessity. At least according to as God would have it. So, I recommend, there we go. I have a couple studies. I'm going to say something about it to wrap it up. But, if you go to my website, oraclesofgod.org, and you click on the link on the studies page, you'll find a study where I have my studies. It's slightly out of date, but it's been updated somewhat. What is it? Is that right side still like that? Wow, that's just... So my studies page hasn't been updated. That's annoying. I didn't update this one. Wow. That's hilarious. I mean, not really, but... like I updated... So did I update my doctrine page? Well, that's doctrine. Okay, whatever. So, good job, Paul. My studies page is totally out of date. What? I didn't upload it because I totally fixed this. Okay, well, so what? On the right-hand side, you'll see my line-by-line Bible study, the audio and the video stuff linked up. But on the left, we have single-subject studies. I haven't done these in a while. They're good, but they take some preparation. In particular, the study called 10, Evil and the Purposes of God. Why is there, it goes into the existence of evil. And why in the purposes of God we would have evil. And the answer is not necessarily what we want to hear, but, So is there any more ones with evil? I thought there was like a corollary one. Well, election and predestination, a 4-hour subject. That always goes well with evil. That's good enough. I recommend all my single subject studies because they usually are questions that people find important, or people have asked because they were important to them. So if one person asks, that means there are a lot of people who are thinking about it who didn't bother to ask. But simply, God has a purpose in this world in raising up sons. He wants to raise sons to glory. this is spoken of, and I'm not going to give all the verses, but election and predestination weighs into this, and also does also like that sin question or the evil question. God is raising up sons. God put man into the world and is raising him up. Part of what we are experiencing is mysterious. We don't understand everything that God is doing because he doesn't lay it out particularly in every sense as we would have him do it. I mean the whys. Like why this? Why this way? The answer to a lot of why questions is, well, because God deemed that for his goals, this was the best option. And the critical thing is understanding what God's goal is. To raise up sons. And to have a kingdom in which only righteousness dwells and we have peace forevermore. But he does not want, but he wants us to be like sons. He wants us to be like adopted into, we are made in his image. We are these beings of ideas and thoughts. And as soon as you get into the realm of ideas, the knowledge of good and evil comes into play. And the fact that some ideas are good and some are evil. And also that the same things that can be used for good can be also used for evil. Your swords can be beaten into plowshares, and your plowshares can be beaten into swords. And the knowledge is what gives us the power to do that. We also have the knowledge to hurt one another, to hurt others, or to create selfish things. There are all kinds of ways in which knowledge can be abused. You know, the human evil is much more cruel than just the evil of the natural world. The evil of the natural world is not truly wicked or evil as we would have it, as we normally think of moral evil. So God has decided to bring about sons through this world, through the means of this world. He's raising up sons in a way that he has deemed necessary so that when we're finished, we could exist with him in that state of having knowledge and knowing about evil. Because what Satan tempted Adam with when he was tempting him with the knowledge of good and evil was that his eyes would be open and he would be like God, knowing good and evil. And it's true that God knows good and evil. So I don't know to what degree Satan was either lying or deceiving him, but he certainly was right in that when Adam ate the fruit, his eyes were opened, and he did have a different understanding of the world. But knowing both good and evil means you have the possibility of choosing evil. You may even have a propensity to choose evil. You know what I mean? That's a sinful nature. And so the purpose is to take beings that otherwise might be sinful, through the life that he gives us and this time, and also the plans he has yet to come, to mold and shape us into beings that are able to know the difference between good and evil and to choose good. That is what he wants us to do, to know evil and to choose the good. And that's why we live, and that's why there is evil in the world. And evil must be very evil. I mean, like, small evils don't really help us understand how bad evil, you know what I mean? Like, until you really see and experience and empathize with horror, it's hard to appreciate. You know, I mean, until I almost lost a child, I never knew what it would be like. Yeah, I know what it's like to be in a hospital and have doctors at 3 a.m. telling you your child might not survive the night. You know? I know what it feels like. I know the aftermath. You're never the same. Things happen to you that make you never the same. Life happens and we're never the same. God wants this. He wants us scarred. He wants us to experience things. Look at Jesus. He's our example. Look what God had done to him. He had him crucified. You want to live forever? You do? How badly do you want to live forever? What would you do to live forever? Would you die? Would you die miserably? Would you endure torture? If only at the other side there was life forevermore, how much torture would you endure? How much torture would you be willing to watch? Would you be willing to sacrifice yourself? Would you be willing to sacrifice the ones you love? Would you be willing to turn your back on the ones you love? Their children shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be everything they built, everything they loved, destroyed in front of their faces, watching their wives raped. That's something every guy looks forward to, right? Watching your woman be raped by other men. Nothing more emasculating than that. You know? Watching other bigger, stronger, more powerful men come in, destroy your city, line you guys up, smash your little kids in front of your face, rape your wives, then take you off into captivity. You're never to see any of those people again. But the thing is, that is just, your typical rape, strangled, and left in a ditch. And that's what life has in store for you. Life, the end of life is you raped, strangled, and lying in a ditch. That is life. I mean, it's just a picture of what life is like for people and how it ends. For everyone. For everyone. It doesn't end much differently, by the way. It doesn't end much differently than raped, strangled, and left in a ditch. That's pretty much how everyone's life ends. With just maybe slightly different, like maybe no rape and strangle, but left in a ditch for sure. You know what I mean? We all get left in a ditch. Everyone leaves us for dead in a ditch. Leaving my mangled corpse in a hole in the ground. That's where we all get dumped. They dump they got whole sections of the city where they just leave the dead people and nobody cares about them anymore. Nobody does reverence to their bones. Nobody sets up little shrines in their homes. Whatever. Whatever. Some people do. That's what life has in store. That is life. Life is a miserable death. Or not. Or you can turn to God and obtain life everlasting. It still may end up with you crucified and all that. Like I said, how badly do you... And then say, well, wait a second, I thought God was good and he loved us. He does, and he is good. But also, it's a high prize, a high calling. This is a high calling. You're not to trifle with it. And the thing is, it's accessible to everyone. That's why, the truth is, it's not about stupidity or intelligence. It's about something entirely... It's about the Lord's doing. It's because it's like one man to the other. Why one believes and one does not, that's the Lord's doing. It's not my doing. It's not, like I got such a convincing spiel I'm going to say to you that you're going to believe, man, after I get done talking with you, right? I guess. I don't know. I'm not that high of opinion of my own abilities. So, the Lord has appointed many dangerous and evil things in the world to happen as he is making his sons. And the thing is, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. All the suffering, it's all worth the glory that is going to be revealed. And so there, that's it. It's all worth it. God has ordained and judged it and valued it. And the suffering we suffer is not to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed. And remember, and I say, and also, you got to remember, comparing the suffering of life, you must compare it with the alternative, which is no life at all, which is no existence at all. Many men have wished they were never born. Like Job wished he was never born. What was it? Mr. Bailey in A Wonderful Life. I forgot his name, the actor. He wished he was never born. And then the Angel Clarence, right, gave him his wings and all that nonsense. I haven't seen that movie in years, but I know everyone's seen it, so you know the characters and all that. The Bailey Building and Loan, or Savings and Loan, whatever. People wish they were never born, but he immediately regrets it, of course, because no matter how miserable your life is, the alternative is worse. Having no life, you cannot. Even Jesus, when he says, "The one whom it is impossible that but that offenses must come. But woe to him by whom they come. It was better for him that a millstone be hanged about his neck and be cast in the sea. Or he said for another person, it had been better for that person if he was never born. But again, it's just like the millstone cast in the sea. It's so arbitrary. It's like, really? It's better? Is it so terrible? I mean, is that, you know what I mean? Like, having a millstone hung around my neck and throwing me into the ocean, it's not the worst way I could think of dying. I mean, it's pretty horrific. But I mean, I don't, okay, drowning with a millstone around my neck. All it's saying is you will surely die. And also, it sounds extravagant, doesn't it? We'll hang a millstone around his neck and throw him in the sea. That means you got to put a millstone on a boat first. That's a pain. And how are you going to get it off the boat without tipping the darn thing over? So, the whole millstone thing. Whatever. No matter how bad it seems, there's always worse. And also, in the end, like I say, here's the thing, we can have comforting moments before we die. Like the moments before I die could be family loving me, but the moment I die alone. And you can have a horrible moment before you die. I'm plunging through the ocean with a millstone around my neck. But in the end, I'm still dead. And it's better to be alive than dead. In whatever state. I don't care what state you say. It is. Well, what about being tortured forever? That would be better. It'd be better than being dead forever. It's more tolerable. When Jesus said that, it's a hyperbole. It's what he says when he says better. And I know some people don't agree, and you don't have to agree with me on this. This is my opinion, okay? But I think it's a sound interpretation. Because there's nothing demonstrably horrible or terrible about not being born. There's no horror to it. There's nothing to it. But it is the greatest of all horrors because it's what every other horror portends. Meaning, as I'm flying through the water, plunging to my doom, it's my doom that's making it scary. If I was just flying through the water and I was going to come out on the other side, it would be an exciting trip in a dolphin tube. I don't know. Or something. You know what I mean? Like I'm flying through the water for some reason. Okay? There's life is a precious gift. And when you have no life, you cannot, the thing is, you cannot say, here's the thing. I'm not saying that I am saying life is better than death, but what I should say, and which is inarguable, this is not arguable. I mean, you can argue it, but you're wasting time because it's not a sound argument. And it's simply this, that death and life, you can't really compare them. As far as if death is an unconscious state of essentially non-existence, meaning, here's the thing. I don't believe in non-existence. I don't believe in annihilation either, really, even though I'll call it annihilationism just as a way to placate my enemies or my opponents. So usually, if it's a Christian, you're not my enemy. You're just my brother who disagrees. All right, this marker is dead, agreed, but it does exist, agreed. So things can be dead but exist. So souls are dead when you die. Your soul is dead, your body is dead, but it still exists. It's just a dead soul. It talks about dead souls actually in the Bible, so we know dead souls are a thing. So a dead soul exists, and so a dead person, but the dead soul has no experiential framework with which to make comparisons with a living soul. Meaning, when I'm alive and in a body, I have experiences. I have pain. And now the reason I can say life is better, the reason people will say life and death is that because they'll talk about, well, in life I have pain, but in death there'll be no pain. But that's not exactly right. Like right now, in my forearm, and that's not a good choice. Actually, it hurts a bit. Right now, my nose doesn't hurt. Sometimes my nose hurts. There's pain from the scar tissue inside because I'm always picking my nose, not because I have boogers, by the way. Well, I do get. What I do is I have scabs that form inside my nose because I had an operation several years ago, which never completely healed, and so I have to every morning I have to remove these scabs from my nose. And this morning I couldn't because actually, it has healed a bit lately, and the scabs are smaller and they're hard to remove. Whatever. Point is, I can feel that there's no pain. When you're dead, you don't feel no pain. You know what I mean? Like, I feel no pain. That is better than feeling pain. You know what I mean? Having no feelings can't be compared with feeling pain. Because having no feelings is not the same as being without pain. Because being without pain implies this: I exist without pain. I exist without suffering. I exist without this. I exist. It's predicated on my existence. When I don't exist, the having pain or not pain is meaningless. It has no meaning at all. It is not good or bad. Non-existence is worthless. It's worthless. It is not painless. I mean, it's painless, it's pleasureless, it's existenceless. You know what I mean? Like, so you can't compare it. You can't say it's better than no pain, better than suffering. How do I know that? How do I know that suffering isn't immeasurably better than being non-existent? Maybe I'd rather suffer my entire life and just get used to it than not exist. I think I would. Though I'll tell you what, I've been in such bad pain at times, I wished I was dead. You know what I mean? I have a headache so awful that I wished I wasn't conscious. I wish I was dead. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's just my conscious mind saying a bunch of crap. That's just me. That doesn't mean that it's like metaphysically true. And because I just won't yield it. I can't believe it. It's not better than non-existent. It's better to live and suffer, watch your children, Job will say, I wish I was dead. I wish I was dead. And blessed are people who never were born rather than me who had to live and see all my kids die and my goods taken away. So much better to never have lived or experienced any of that stuff than to have gotten and then lost it all. I mean, I get it, but it's not a sound argument, because I can make a much more better argument. No. It was better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. I'm from that school of poetry. I know the loss is painful. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Well, here's the thing. If ultimately we can't accept that, then maybe life is not for us. I've questioned that. Is life really for me? That's the thing, is that people don't even ask this question for the most part. I do. Do I really want to live forever? Do I really want to exist forever? Do I hate my existence so much that maybe I don't want to? Maybe I don't want to live forever. Maybe that's just not, I don't like life. I don't like me. I don't want to exist with me and be me forever. Because that's what's going to, in the end, maybe it's like I just walk willingly into the fire and say, just put me out, man. Just put me out. It's not for me. Of course, for most Christians, unfortunately, this whole conversation is strange, because for them it's like, yeah, your houses shall be spoiled and your wives raped, and then God's going to get you, and he's going to torture you forever. See? You pagan. You worshipped other gods. Well, now God's going to send your enemies against you. They're going to take your children, smash them in pieces before your eyes, then rape your wives, then carry you into captivity. Then when you die, you're going to go to hell. And then you're going to be tortured forever. Forever. Not just, remember how, like, remember that trip from Israel to Assyria, naked, walking barefoot? How awful that was when you, with the chains and the memory of your dead children and the memory of your wife being raped, and God knows where she is now, you know. But hey, you know, you'll never see her again, so why worry? You know, but now you're going to die. And don't worry, you're in God's hands. And obviously, he's not happy with you. He's sending you into captivity, and, you know, your punishment has only begun. Only begun because it's still going on today. See, these people who watch these people, they watch their wives be raped. They watch their children dashed to pieces. Not only are those images playing over and over again in their minds forever, they'll get to play them over and over again in their minds in hell as God tortures them. Now, I don't believe this stuff. But, like, that's exactly how, like, if you believe it, preach it. Own it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and weep and mourn about the wicked having their children smashed. You know, here's the thing. We have sympathy with children. But everyone's asked the question, you know, would you go back and kill baby Hitler? You know, and it's like, well, I wouldn't. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong to do a murder. You know, why not just go back and kidnap baby Hitler? Raise him right. You know, I don't know. Why do they got to kill the guy? You know what I mean? I mean, just because, I mean, it's like, obviously, you know, and like, I tell you what, people can be brought, not, everyone is capable of dark things. People are. This was discovered in the World War II. There's a book called Ordinary Men. It's about the police battalion that became an execution squad. What's what I want to call it? Whatever. They became basically an execution squad. Just executing people. But like how they were transformed from regular people to total murderers. You know, and just heartless, killing women and children in much this fashion. You know what I mean? I mean, just summarily and with almost like it's just another day at work. How do people get transformed like that? Well, it's in you. It's in you. Here's another thing. It's like those babies, they have it in them. They have it in them. They have it in them to be wicked, total, depraved people. The world is filled with wicked, depraved people. We pity these children, but they're just wicked, depraved souls that God knows that they were going to sin, and they died fully deserving being dashed to pieces on the rocks. You know, when I was born, they should have taken me and dashed me to pieces on the rocks. I mean, it's just the truth. As far as like just look at him. I mean, because I'm in the old days. If I was born in Sparta, I wouldn't have made it past the first night because they would have thrown me off the cliff because I'm deformed. Because like nobody knows exactly. I mean, some people know, but it's like they would throw me off. I would be, you know, because we don't keep non-perfect babies in some societies. You know, they just, if you have any flaws, you know, anything off, boom, over the edge you go. Over the edge you go. You know, because you know, they didn't have $1 million babies back then. Not that I needed $1 million for my problem. Actually, my problem's still with me. It's no big deal. But back then, it was like they wanted people intact. They wanted them whole. So they'd routinely thrown their own babies off the cliff. Those babies, who knows who they are? They're innocent? No, they're not. No one is born innocent. In sin, my mother conceived me. This is how also in Noah's flood drowned millions of babies. Millions of babies. And God, those babies that are aborted, God lets it happen every year. And I always am a bit torn. I know it's wrong. I don't have tons of, I do feel this like internal, like you see a picture of a fetus or some advertising for, you know, it tugs on your heart. Of course. I mean, I may sound cold and like a terrible person, but I'm just giving it to you the straight way. But like, you know, you see that and it tugs on your heart. But it's a human being. You don't know. They could be the next Hitler. I wouldn't kill baby Hitler either because it would mean I wouldn't exist, actually. Because we are all, by the way, all of us. If you're in Generation X, like me, if you were born after 1950, or probably even after in the 40s or somewhere in there. If you were born in that period of time since World War II, you are basically Hitler's child. I mean, what I mean by that is you would not, if it hadn't been for Hitler, if Hitler hadn't been born, if there'd never been a World War II, there would never been a you. Because all the displacement, all the people that died, you understand, like, my parents met up and that millions of people died in World War II, and those people would have been in the way. They would have been in the way. You know, the old man that my mom never met on the way out of the candy shop that would have done whatever, that impacted whatever, or the, you know, or like the grandson of somebody who ended up marrying, or the granddaughter of somebody who didn't die in the war ended up marrying my dad instead of my mother. You know what I mean? Granddaughter of the guy who didn't die in the war because there was no war. And there was no, and there would, and then it would disrupt everything. Not just marriages that didn't happen, pregnancies that didn't happen, just days shifted, people's lives altered ever so slightly. Every person born after 1950 wiped off the globe. You understand that our existence is, people don't even, I never hear people say this, but it's like the 6 million Jews that died in the Holocaust, horrible. But also, if they didn't, we'd all be gone. If they didn't die, if they weren't, you know, not all necessarily, but I mean pretty much. The farther you get away from that event, the more it affects things. You know what I mean? Meaning, there are a lot of kids who were born around the time of World War II who would still be born probably. But there are many who wouldn't. And just the timing, you know, just the timing of all the sex and stuff. You know what I mean? The months that it happens on. Here's that every egg is different. Every sperm is different. You know, or different enough that there are millions of possibilities. And it's like, and bad things happen in the world to God, for God to bring about his purpose. And he wanted the bad things to be exceedingly bad, so we would understand the nature of evil. God, when we enter into that eternal world with God, God becomes all in all, we are his sons, we are adopted. We're going to have access to power. God's power. You know what I mean? Access to things that you can only dream of. And you don't think God wants us to have an intimacy with evil and understand the possible repercussions? If he's going to share with us, we who have the potential for such great evil, to make us like sons, it's quite an amazing thing. So yeah, the test is going to be pretty hard. And but the process is going to be harsh. You know, it's like he's making gods. Not little, you know, it's not a right way to say it. You know, like you said, I have said you are gods, but in a sense, gods. But it makes us nearly divine. I mean, because if we have the divine nature, if God has given that to us, if he's given us celestial bodies without a sin nature and all these other things and gifts, you know what I mean? And it's not just a question of autopilot. It's like we still get to be ourselves. And when I see the capacity I have for evil, and when I see also sometimes what it takes to break me of evil, the hard things that have to happen to me, you know, just like, you know, sometimes you have to burn your hand on the stove to stop touching it. And sometimes life is like that too. To stop doing evil, we have to come into contact with it. Or do we have to? Not necessarily. Could God do it a different way? Perhaps. But I would say that this is how he's chosen to do it. Because I don't say this is the best way, because I don't know. I don't know if this is the best way. This is the way God chose. So if I have a problem with it, I have a problem with God. The way that's chosen, it may seem to us like, oh, well, I don't like the way, or whatever. It may be so, but it wasn't I that chose it. It's not I that understand the ultimate purpose, or even the end goal, like what that exactly looks like. Because it says, it does not appear what we shall be, but we know we will be like him. I mean, we don't know exactly what we're going to be. We know he's God. We're going to be like him, but we're not going to be exactly like him because we can't be. We can't be God. God is from everlasting. We can't be little gods. There's no really such thing. But in the sense that we share many aspects, okay, yeah. That's why it's a weird question for Christians, right? Because we don't believe we become little gods, or that we were little gods, or any such thing, right? But we also acknowledge that Jesus said things that we understand that he said things that cause people to think like that. Like when he said, when he quoted Psalm 82, I have said you are gods, all of you are children of the Most High. Speaking there of judges who sat in God's place. But also, but he was referring actually to his own divinity and how it was not blasphemy for him to like I said, when we looked at Isaiah 9, when it talked about his name should be called Father. I said Jesus, the Son of God, he's equal to the Father, but he's not the same thing. He's not one and the same with the Father. The Son and the Father are distinct. Yet, it is not wrong to call the Son Father. Like I can say to pretty well caught up there. That's good. Huh. Good question. How much? I don't know, Dawn. I can't see. I don't usually see the questions and stuff. I should give out my phone number and say, text me your questions. Right? Yeah, that's great. I get a lot of texts all the time. All right. How much what? I wish I'd said the time. Oh, well. So, again, verse 17. We're not going to read this now. We'll pick this up on Monday. But notice, who is it? I will stir up the Medes against them. The Medes and the Persians. That's why I said it is the Medes and Persians he's talking about coming to conquer Babylon. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. So as in summary, their bows shall dash the young men to pieces. Yeah. I guess we're going to be talking more about children being killed. It's important. That's like I said with slavery. The Bible has verses that condone slavery. The Bible has verses that condemn slavery. The Bible has verses that condone the eating of feces. The Bible has verses that condemn the eating of feces. It's unclean. There's even a whole passage in Ezekiel where he talks about it. I mean, you know what I'm saying, though? But the Bible says, eat crap. Just because the Bible says it doesn't mean you're supposed to do it. Just because the Bible says it doesn't mean that that's the doctrine. Just because the Bible has commandments about keeping slaves doesn't mean that's the doctrine. You have to read it in people don't understand. Like it's like Christians ended slavery because the Bible condemns slavery. I mean, that's the thing. When you get to the end of the Bible, you look at the book of Revelation, people that make slaves are going to hell. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's bad. The Bible says so. It condemns it clearly. But again, it clearly also says you shouldn't eat poop. But there's verses that say, eat poo. Okay? You got to learn to understand what's going on. Context matters. That's why these people who talk about the Bible, who don't know the Bible, I don't give them any ground. Because they don't know what they're talking about. You got to be cocky about it. When people say, what about the Bible? This is like, well, the Bible, blah, 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 blah. The Bible also condones, the Bible condones the smashing of children, to pieces. The Bible also condemns the slaying of children. The Bible both condemns and condones the slaying of children. The secret is in understanding what because I said the Bible says a lot of stuff. The Bible isn't God. The Bible says eat poo. God didn't say eat poo. Actually, he does at one place. He does say eat poo, actually, to Ezekiel. But again, he didn't mean it. I mean, he meant it, but he doesn't mean it like a broad commandment. Just like the keeping of slaves. He doesn't mean like go get some slaves, everybody. Here, go get some slaves. What it was is he had rules. When you have slaves, here's the rules. You may not do this, you may not do that, you may not do that. If you have sex with a slave, you better marry her. You have to marry her, actually. Think about it. The Bible says if a man lays with a slave, he had to marry her if he impregnated her. Or he didn't have to marry. Well, he did. He had to. Well, he wasn't able to, there were some rules. Whatever. I forget the exact nature of that rule. That's why I don't want to stand on it too heavily. I don't remember exactly. But it's like that. It's like, if you read the biblical rules about slavery, and you compare it to slavery in America, you realize that the slavery we were practicing was much more wicked and insidious, and it doesn't have the biblical, because the biblical, like, fugitive slave law, I've often pointed out, you weren't allowed to return fugitive slaves. Imagine if the law in America was, if a slave runs away to the north, he can't be returned to the south. Because that's the biblical law. That's basically, if a man ran away from his master, you were not legally allowed to return him. He was to be presumed to have a good reason to run away. That's it. And otherwise, and then what that did is basically it made conditions for slaves better. Because if a slave could run away, now a person like who's a captive in a strange land, running away as a slave to a city meant you were basically going to be homeless. But if you thought that was better than being a slave, you weren't to be returned. Most of the slaves were actually foreign captives, so they may not even speak the language well. But the point is, in being a slave in the biblical sense was not it wasn't chattel slavery of our day. It wasn't chattel race slavery where you're like you and your children forever and ever because of your race and you're inferior and all this stuff. They had developed a very, and honestly, the reason the slavery system in America was so horrible, and I know we're 20 minutes over, the reason it was so insidious and terrible is because we were Christians. And because they were trying to justify it. And in trying to justify a terrible system, you know what I mean? Like when you try to justify something terrible, it's inevitable that you're going to make it worse. Because you have to say that what you're doing is good and just and right. And therefore, every bad thing you do in it becomes justified. And then every worse thing you do becomes minimized. I mean, if I justify the little things I do, the way I dehumanize someone I have as a captive, if I justify that stuff, then the things that are much worse become not so bad. You know what I mean? Like if I justify all the little ways I treat them as inhuman, then, sleeping with a slave is not really rape and blah, blah, and all this other stuff gets, thrown in because it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope argument, and the slippery slope argument is not untrue. It is often very true. A little bit, slippery. You start off a little bit and you get going. I've been on a slippery slope. I fell off a roof once. Once you get sliding, sometimes there's no stopping it. Okay. And I have so much more I'd like to say on this subject. Honestly, I could go on for hours. We only covered 4 verses. That's all right. These are big-time verses. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, I don't know if I've had a verse that says so much. And so, that is a vivid verse, isn't it? Vivid. And ravished is a very polite way of saying it. Oh, I'm saving it. There's no different. All right, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back again not tomorrow, but Monday, and continuing chapter 13. So shall bash the young. Here we go. Oh, that's the next part.